And we're back. This is segment 3 of episode 363 of the Colombia Calling podcast. And my guest this week, as I've been advertising and promoting, is the artist Eddie White Jr. He's from Australia and he arrived in 2020, but he's made a name for himself with the caricatures that he's been doing of Colombian, well, I would say individuals, elements of society, but most recently, maps of each department and cities, which look a bit like sort of, I would say, fugly dolls pushed together, in kind of monster type drawings, but it's really quite amusing and it's really quite comfortable. And you've got a huge following here in Colombia. So I'd like to take this moment and say thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast, Eddie.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me on. As they say, long-time listener. First-time caller.
First-time caller. Very good. Well, no,
yeah.
Again, flattery is great. I love that someone listens to the podcast out there, and I mean, at least I'm not just a voice in
yeah, exactly.
in a garage somewhere. But Eddie, I mean, you arrived in 2020. Let's wind back. Why did you choose Colombia for your? I mean, because I guess it's for artistic inspiration.
Well, yeah, I'd been here the first time in 2017. I visited Colombia then. My best friend, well, he wasn't my best friend until I came here. We'd been longtime friends, but we hadn't seen each other for years and years. We met at an animation film festival in Croatia, in Zagreb, in 2006. And so we're both illustrators, animation filmmakers, and that kind of thing. So we formed this friendship, but I didn't see him until 2017. I came over. And finally, my first trip to Latin America, which was exciting. And I knew the minute because I always got along with Colombians that I met elsewhere. I always had this instant connection with them, which I didn't really know why. And I thought maybe they were all really nice. And then I came here and it just felt like, oh, this is the kind of place that I really could spend more time. And back then I had to come back to Australia. So I only spent 3 weeks the first time. I went to Bogota and Cartagena, but then I came back. 2020 was my sort of second trip here, and I was on a one-way ticket, and it was with the aim of staying long-term in Latin America. I wasn't sure about whether it was going to be Colombia or Argentina at that stage, but the lockdown kind of decided that for me, and I've been here ever since.
And are you a trained artist from Australia, in Australia?
I didn't train in drawing, no. I actually, that was sort of a self-taught thing that I was born with in a way. Like I'd just been drawing ever since I was a little kid. I studied acting at university and also did animation filmmaking at the same time. So I guess I've got a few interests that have all kind of collided and they've sort of usually converged in filmmaking or that kind of thing. So,
I'd say that there's definite overlap and cross-cutting.
Definitely.
There. I mean, it's the creative industries and so on.
And even with Instagram and artists, it's like you are a character. You know what I mean? You're not 100% yourself. There's an element of some exaggeration at points. There's some points where you're 100% authentic, but generally it's very much me. But I like the idea that there's almost a persona that goes along with the art, which I think most artists that I love had that in some way. So I've sort of taken some little tips from people here and there.
Okay. And I mean, before we get into it, how would you describe your art, the stuff that you're putting out on your Instagram at the moment and so on?
Yeah, it's interesting because until someone else describes it, you usually don't sit down and think, I'm going to draw in this particular style. You just draw and that's your style. I think it's closer to pop art than anything. I mean, it's very much simple, kind of like the A to Z of Colombia stuff that I did was very much like I think the simplicity is what makes that work, and then obviously the other stuff I do is more kind of sensual, cheeky. I think I like to make stuff that's got that makes someone feel something, or they feel hungry, or they feel turned on, or whatever it is. I just think that there's got to be some reason while you're doing that drawing, not just a pretty picture. So I like to have a bit of spice in them in some way or shape or another, and
spice is one thing. We can get into this later, but there's certainly some risque,
Yeah,
naughty
yeah.
drawing in there. Would take me back to the kind of sort of Victorian era. No, not Victorian. Yeah, Victorian era postcards from the seaside. Sort of,
Yes.
no, later than that, I would say up into the 1950s, 60s, like where a
Sort of naughty kind
yeah,
of. That's what
naughty
you'd say in
where the
Australia.
wind might be lifting up a
A
dress.
skirt. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I think I've always had that cheeky part of my personality. And I think in Australia, obviously we're British heritage, so there's probably that influence, but also Australians in general don't really get my stuff. Like I do have some Australian fans, but they find my sexual stuff not to their taste. Australian men don't particularly like the sexual drawings. Some Australian women do, but other Australian women don't. So it's very, very interesting culturally to see how it impacts in different countries. But Colombians love it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, more than anyone else in the world, they love the more sexy, the more naughty the drawings are, the more Colombians follow me, like, comment,
Really?
share. Yeah, and it's
Well,
Colombian
I'm going to
women.
hold
It's
that
not
one up
Colombian
for
men.
everyone.
Yeah,
Whenever
exactly.
she danced, her hips moved like melting caramel. I mean, is that about a Colombian lady dancing?
It was inspired by I saw someone in my Insta story and she was dancing and her hips looked like caramel, and I thought that's so I get inspired by a lot of things that I see and hear, and it's not always Colombian. Like, not all of my sexual drawings are necessarily about Colombian. I think some people make that assumption because I'm drawing them while I'm here, but I was drawing them before I came to Colombia as well. So yeah, but I think it's essential. I think it's essential country in one way, and then a really conservative country in another way, which makes it a really interesting country to engage with. Yeah.
It's interesting on that level because it is, like sort of mannerisms. It's very conservative here. I mean,
On the front, on the outside, yeah.
Yeah, and people, how they're educated, how they behave, unless you're family, because everybody knows it. But it's very conservative in that respect. But then you notice again, let's say there's the Latin sensuality beyond that, and
Yeah.
okay, so you guys, what's the end game though? I mean, you did the A to Z, which is really cool. It's like a dictionary of Colombian, I would say, exuberance and exoticism and so on. And now these maps, and here's the map of Colombia. I'll just hold it up again. It's high technology here, by the way. Yeah. Here's the map of Colombia. It's really fun, and you've got it like, see, there's sort of prehistoric fish in there and so on. What's the end game? I mean, is there going to be a book of prints, or I mean, are you selling?
Yeah, I mean, I'm about to launch some t-shirts and coffee mugs. That'll be the first dipping my toe into the water to see how they go. I'd love to make a book. I've spoken to a few publishers here, but either the meetings didn't happen or the talks didn't necessarily progress. But I would love to make a book. But I just think I try and live very much in the present with it, and I know that as I explore the country and explore the culture more and more, there'll be more and more inspiration that I get in all kinds of ways, whether it's food or expressions or geography or music, dance, women, sex, whatever it is. I think that I like exploring all of those aspects. And some people say to me, "Oh, why don't you draw about politics?" And I thought, well, it's because it doesn't have that same deliciousness. Politics isn't, it's fascinating, and it's all of those things, but I'm not into making political memes and that kind of stuff. It's just not my particular interest. So, and I'm not Colombian, so I don't really feel like, I've only been here a year, I'm not going to really comment on Colombian politics deeply,
Not yet. You stay here much
until I've been here as long as you.
You have a business visa now, and so
exactly.
You'll be paying taxes. You'll want to start.
Yeah, but I also don't want them to kick me out. So
this is true. It was was it National Day or International Day of the Journalist the other day, and I guess you got to be careful.
You do. You do.
Now you arrived 2020 right before the pandemic kicked in, so you've had plenty of time to be studying and drawing, and you spent it all there in Cartagena and the lockdown. I mean, you got here. It was really weird because in February, I mean, we still thought of South America as an island distant from
Yeah.
what was being discussed as something that was so far away and wouldn't.
Yeah.
But in my view, in my personal opinion, the virus was here from December, but in small parts
Absolutely.
because of
Absolutely.
Colombians coming home for Christmas. And I got
From
it.
Europe.
Yeah, I got it in March.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, I got it in March after the big tourism fair here because there were 40,000 people from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know it was COVID because no one was talking about it. I was just bedridden for 3 days. I
Yeah.
mean, really bedridden, didn't have any pressure on my lungs or anything like that. But I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, it was just like a fever that wouldn't go away. And what happened after that is I wasn't lucid for the next few months. I mean, I was much slower in getting
So it's
things
definitely
done.
COVID.
And then I did a test later on, I mean, several months later, and they went, yeah, you've got
Yeah.
here, we can see that you've had it. So I was like, well, that's that. And, you know, I mean, how is this, I would say, you haven't had it, obviously, but how has it
No.
affected your drawing and the way that you've, you know, established how you want to work here? Or does it just mean you've been, you know, in the grind, working away in isolation?
Yeah. Well, no, it really affected everything. I mean, it affected everything as far as it kept me in Cartagena, which in lockdown by myself. And I guess in that sense, it forced me to explore Colombia virtually rather than physically, because obviously I would have planned to go everywhere. But and I think it's a pretty nice city to be able to do that with the beautiful sunsets and you wake up every morning and you hear the birds singing in that city and you feel good. It's just a city where you feel good.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel depressed or lonely. I just felt creatively alive. And I think that I started doing these Instagram lives, and I started doing them almost every night. I was doing them because it was my social time, you know. And I was meeting and talking with mostly young Colombians from all over the country and also other Latin American countries. And we would talk about everything from, you know, culture and relationships and sex and religion and everything. We talked about. So I was mining these kind of followers for all of this amazing information. And then a lot of them became my friends, and a lot of them inspired drawings as well. So I guess in that way, COVID forced everyone to be inside, and we were communicating with each other. And I'm also making an animated short film, which the storyline is also about a virus that stops a little girl from being able to go to the beach. So she invites the beach to come to her, and all the creatures kind of come on land. And yeah, so it's definitely influenced lots of elements of what I've done here.
That's cool. That's cool. I just want to go back to the idea of a book. The publishers here won't want to pay you anything. I mean, that's the thing.
Is that right?
Yeah, they won't want to pay you anything, or say, you know, not even 10% on each sale.
Okay.
You know, I would suggest going down to the Barrio Ricaorte in Bogota, and that's where you can get all coffee mugs made and hats and books, printouts and stuff.
Just get self-publish.
Yeah, and you know, when we are allowed back in
Yeah.
social events, there are some of us who always set up sort of things, you know, little, you know, I haven't done it in a while, but we had, you know, I helped edit a book and wrote a couple of stories for it
Cool.
years ago, and we self-published and actually did quite well. And
oh, cool.
You get a few hundred people turn up, and you'd sell, you know, to about 75.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. And people have been asking for the book. People are, where can I buy the A to Z of Colombia? And I'd love to be able to sell it. Obviously, there's some legal. Yeah, exactly. And there's some legal things with using brands and stuff like that. You know, having C for Chocoramo and having P for Postobon and stuff. Like, can you use the logo, or can I get those companies involved and sponsorship or something like that? So there's a few things that have to be explored there that I think is simpler than the maps, for example. The good thing about the maps is I can just go straight ahead and put them on t-shirts, put them on mugs, put them on anything, because I own the rights to, you know, I don't own the rights to geography, but
but you know, Ricaurte, it's actually quite a fun, you know how in Bogota there are districts that sort of just specialize in one thing.
in
you
things.
can go down to near to the Quinta Mutis in the 7 Agosto. So just when you leave the 7 Agosto, and it's all car repair stuff and all stolen goods, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you head across the way, and it's all sort of 1980s leather jacket emporiums. I mean, it's hilarious.
Oh. So what's the area that's all the, like, I went to Unilago, which was like the electrical
yeah, and you get everything
place.
there.
It's cool because we don't have that in my city, in Australia, and particularly in my city in Adelaide, we don't have obviously the population like this. So I think where you've got a city like of 8 million people, and they needed to get the stuff in certain areas. I think it's really cool. Like Paris is like that too, isn't it? Paris has got the area where you get the flowers, and the areas where you get the dogs, and the areas where you get the fruit, whatever it is.
I like the idea of going to there's an area that only sells overalls.
Here.
and they're all like referred to as like the Palacio de los Overoles. And then
Oh,
where I've seen 4 or 5 shops in a row that sell sort of the paper guillotines, it's
in Bogota.
in Bogota. It's not far from the Macarena, if I'm not mistaken. And then
Right.
so
And there's
many
one part that's all wooden things, isn't there? All wood carved wooden
and then if you go
things.
below the Treinta, and it's all that one section where they all sort of make the sofas and chairs and stuff. A map of that would, I think,
That would be cool.
but it'd be so hard because there's so many things. But
So many,
time.
yeah.
You got time.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, we talked about. I mean, I know friends have talked about doing it, but in sort of writing. This area is this. But with the drawing, the illustration, I think it would be really fun.
Yeah.
The only area where you get your sort of stolen goods, and the area where I don't know. It would be a really good thing to have. I think. Very much in the field of your.
Very much, yeah. I'll definitely take note of that, because I think that's the thing. I feel like I'm a walking set of eyes and ears. I'm always soaking up, whether it's songs or drawings or photo, everything just goes into my head, and then some comes out in some form.
You could go to one of the San Andresitos where it's all sort of laundering money. All the stuff they sell. You just put the a wad of bills, I think. Because I did my thesis down near to this in one of the San Andresitos in Los Martires, in a pretty down at hill part of old industrial part of Bogota, not far from the Bronx, and I used to park in this car park, and then one day they were knocking down the car park, and I said, "What are they putting up here?" And they went, "Oh, another centro comercial, mall." And I was like, "These aren't really malls, because those tiny sort of shops in there that seem to survive somehow on selling Chinese
Phone covers.
And you're like, that's not an industry. And I went to the owner. I went, "Yeah, well, you say centro comercial, I say lavadero." And he went, "You know how it is, don't you?" I said, "Well, I've been spending 6 months down in this area,
right,
every day. You see it,
So it's where they go to clean money. Is that's where?
Oh, well, it's been going for so long. It's just where things are. It's so easy. It's this gray area between legal and illegal, Chinese goods, and so on and so forth.
Fascinating. Contraband. Yeah.
Problem is that I'm 6'2", and I don't look Colombian. So I stand out down there. Inside. Now let's go back to your art, because it's who are your biggest fans for this art, because I think when we talk about the podcast, I get a lot of people from the Colombian diaspora in the United States, and of course in Europe a little bit more, a little bit less, I mean, but I think your art makes people, let's say, yearn for Colombia more than people in Colombia itself.
Well, yes, but I mean 56% of my followers are based here. Wow. So and then it's the USA, and probably most of the ones in the USA are Colombians who are living in the USA. But yeah, definitely most of my followers are in Colombia, and 21% of those are in Bogota. So my biggest audience would be a woman between the ages of 18 and 25 in Bogota. That's my audience.
All right, fair enough. So we have to move on to the controversy.
Yes.
We have to move on to this.
The polemic.
And it was Girls of Medellin.
Yeah.
The Girls of Medellin, and it made El Tiempo and Publimetro and everything else. What was it that offended people about this?
It
Was it
was.
because it was too accurate?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that I did drawings for the Girls of Bogota
And they
when
liked
I
it.
first arrived. No, yeah, there was no controversy. They liked it. I did the
Bogota's what it,
Girls
yeah,
of
that's
Cartagena.
what it is.
Yeah, Girls of Cartagena. Yep, they loved it. They were sharing it and everything. And then I think I'd been in Medellin for like 3 or 4 days. I hadn't even been there a week. And I thought, well, I've definitely got to draw the Girls of Medellin, because girls were asking me, when are you going to draw the Girls of Medellin? We want to see you draw us. And so I thought, okay, I've got to do this, but I want to get a good idea about what the, and it's mainly younger women that I'm drawing. I'm not drawing women in their 50s or their 40s. It's what the trendsetters, what are the girls wearing in the street? Like, what are the girls wearing in the shopping malls? So I went to Santa Fe shopping mall, in Poblado, which is a really nice area. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to see necessarily the working class kind of thing, but and so I got a really good cross section of what the girls were wearing, and also in other areas. And I sort of made mental notes of them. Okay, so ripped jeans, a lot of like leg tattoos, a lot of straight long hair, and that kind of stuff, and all this stuff, which I thought was really cool and really, cool. Like, I had no problem with it, and I wasn't making any judgment about it. And when I drew it, it was very much like, yeah, this is just a slice of what the girls in Medellin are wearing, because the climate's different to Bogota, because the culture is different there, because the reggaeton is, it's the home of reggaeton and that kind of stuff. And I put it on Instagram, and it was quite popular on Instagram. And then my downfall, no, well, I put it on Twitter, which was obviously, and that's where people go to.
That's where hate comes from.
And that's where hate is born. So I put it on Twitter, and then I think within a few hours, I was getting backlash from some members of the community, and mainly there was some sort of I guess a feminist stance. I mean, look, the thing is, I've got a lot of feminist followers. I know that it wasn't all feminists, but there was a particular stance of feminists in Colombia that were in Medellin or wherever, saying that we don't look like this, and that this is stereotyping, and this is dangerous, and this is and you're a sex tourist, and you're a cocaine sniffer, and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't engage. I thought, well, I'm none of these things that they're saying I am, so I'm not going to start having some war online. So I just sat back and watched it happen, and it just grew and grew and grew. And I got messages of hate, I got threats, I got all kinds of comments on my page, and I was just blocking a lot of people. Yeah. And then the funny thing happened when it hit the news, when it hit the El Tiempo, when it hit Caracol and those ones. That's when the opposite happened. I got this wave of support of Colombians going, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. This is all bullshit. Don't worry about it. This is Colombia. It's a country of double morals. And they started telling me all this stuff about Colombia, which I didn't really ever think about, and they were telling me all these words about morongos and all these different expressions, which I didn't know about when I came to Medellin. So I got 6,000 followers who suddenly saw my art and were like, oh, we really like his stuff. So I got even more Colombian followers from it. So it ended up being a positive thing. And it taught me that, because I'm very much like, I always want people to like my stuff, like and if someone doesn't like it, I always think, oh, why don't they like it? Then I realize, wow, yeah, I think to be an artist means that you will be hated by particular people.
Well, I'm looking at it. Look at it. There's 450 something comments on this one here, and you've got depravado sexual, and then you've got someone, I don't see anything bad about this. You've
realidad.
But this is interesting because people are saying I don't fit into this. Of course, some people aren't going to fit into this, and as others, Colombians are saying, yeah, this is the perfect graphic representation. So you've got everything. But I work a lot in the service industry, having hotels and so on, and other ones. But it's the negative reviews that obviously I remember most, and the difficult the difficult guests who I remember most, rather than the positive
The
ones.
positive ones. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
The vocal minority.
yeah, have you got grown thicker skin since this?
Definitely. I used to care about if something, now I'm like, bring it on, you know what I mean? And I would never do something to cause controversy. I never would draw something to poke the bear or that kind of thing. I just do what I do, and I often consult people, like I'll if I is this considered poor taste or whatever. I usually check with a few Colombians, and then usually I get a good gauge and whether I draw it or not. And obviously it's personal taste, isn't it? Some people just will think any drawing of sex is sexualized or hypersexualized, whereas other people will be like, that's so erotic. And so what I've realized is that I'm going to be drawings for a particular kind of people in general. And if the people don't like it, they don't like it. That's good,
So be it. No, and I saw mentions there is that when you're going to do Bucaramanga, when you're going to do Ibagué.
Yeah, everyone's asking.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
This is, like I said, increased your visibility. I'm sure increased your work. It's publicity for an artist. I mean, El Tiempo, Publimetro, Caracol. Did they even interview you, or they just picked it up and just ran with it?
Yeah, I was a bit. That's what annoyed me a bit, was that the first couple of including El Tiempo and these, very reputable news, they didn't even reach out for a comment or an explanation. It was just, this is what's happening. And then I think what Colombians kind of, the sense I get is that Colombians don't like being told what to think. So the minute the news says this is controversial, they go, really? There's massacres in this country. There is all this sort of stuff happening. Like, are we really worried about a drawing that's probably like actually real? So that's what I've discovered, is that when it hit the news, that's when I got the support. But when it was just on Twitter, that's when I was getting the hate, and the support drowned out the hate.
I think it's an interesting point here about sort of this massacres taking place, so etc. I think that a lot of the big media will love this sort of thing to generate controversy, and then of course it's great to then hide what's going on. Let's have the moral outrage against something that, it rubs a lot of people up the wrong way, but within the context, you're not insulting anyone.
No, and it was almost like a love letter to Paisas, as opposed to me parodying or me having a go at them. I mean, if I'd had arrows saying, silicone breast implants or, plastic surgery, I would have understood that as being disrespectful. I wouldn't have done that. Yeah, exactly. And even though there is people in Colombia do know Medellin, obviously a degree of Medellin for that, but I was never going to do something like that, which is why I kept it pretty innocent. But I think that the news stations that did contact me, and because I did get interviewed for Noticias Red, I think it is.
Oh, okay, Red,
yeah, and Caracol. I think Caracol interviewed me later, which I really respected, because they reached out and I said, look, thank you so much, because I love this country, I love the people of this country. I never wanted to sort of annoy anyone, but then I realized that that's going to happen.
I would put it in, obviously high praise here, put it like Matador in El Tiempo and stuff, the caricaturist. He really hits home hard and gets death threats and has to do things, but it's not out there to be consumed by everyone.
No.
He's obviously pushing a political agenda. You're not, but at the same time, you're just saying it as it is.
It's just an observation. It's my observation. Yes, I'm foreigner. Yes, I'm an Australian, but no, I'm not a sex tourist. No, I'm not a cocaine sniffer and all these. I'm not a misogynist and all these things that they were calling me. So,
it's quite tough, isn't it, on this one? I actually had the confirmation for one of these sex tourists to come on the podcast. The guy who was managing like a sex tourism.
Oh, it's like a ring.
His name was Austin Summers.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Out of Medellin and kicked out of Colombia, and rightly so. But I had him lined up for an interview, and I announced it that I was gonna, because I was going to give him a really hard time. I mean,
Yeah.
I have the ability to do so, hopefully, in an intelligent manner, and the attacks that I got, I mean, really quite hardcore attacks. And now I respect the attacks from a lot of
Yeah.
proper academic feminists and so on. I was like, I was going to get him on to ridicule and to show him for
Grill
what
him.
he was. But the attacks were like, I can't believe you're digging in, that you're backing this
Giving
up.
him airtime.
Yeah, giving airtime, promoting him. It's like, no, the idea is that we sink him. Yeah,
Yeah.
sink him totally. And of course, he's sunk without a trace now, and I think he's back
Yeah.
in Canada. I think I want to say it's from there. But and I looked at his website and stuff. No, and it was just it was awful. And I really wanted to get that out there and also to sort of push it towards Colombians and say, don't allow this to happen.
Yeah.
Try and work together to ensure that we can create sort of a different, I would say, I don't know, an economic model that doesn't have to move towards this. So I'm getting into some deeper things here about the society and so on. But you just got to be careful. But I really, it's like, I'm not backing down on this. This is my show. I'm going to show him for what he is. It's not publicity in that respect. But anyway.
And so you didn't have him on in the end?
Oh, well, no, it wasn't a question of that. He just disappeared. I mean, it obviously got too hot for him here, and he was expelled, I think, from the country. So
yeah, fair enough.
I still might, sort of chase him up, but I doubt he'll respond.
Do you think Colombians love controversy?
They not a doubt about it, and melodrama.
Yeah. Now, someone said to me, if it's like a telenovela here. It's like, which, I mean, at least it's never boring. I mean, that's the thing about Colombia. It is never boring.
It's never.
It's often over the top or dramatic, but I think the reason I came here was that I was bored in Australia. So I came. I definitely ended up.
We go through these periods right now of great uncertainty and challenging times, and I wonder, would I be better for my family elsewhere? And obviously, I look at the UK, and it's like, no,
not the UK.
But at the same time, you think, well, the stability and so on, and I think I would be so bored.
That's why you're here. That's why you're in Colombia. That's why I'm in Colombia. It's got something special. It's like you're saying, there's some craziness about it, but it's an incredibly special place. And I can't see myself in the near future anyway wanting to be anywhere else. I just have found such connection with people here that I haven't had in any other country. And I think the Colombians love talking. They will talk to you about anything and everything. And they're not boring people. The Colombians are never boring.
No, I think
so.
Would you describe yourself then? Because I've been described as this now because I'm in my 40s, so I'm not, I'm not jumping off cliffs on bungee and stuff. But I've been described as a non-conventional thrill seeker.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely not into parasailing, bungee jumping, but that the controversy, I guess it did give me a bit of a rush, and it was unexpected. I didn't expect it, but it was like, wow, if that's what being an artist in Colombia is, then it's not boring. And I thought, I'd happily not have one of those every day, but I'll take those moments for all the the amazing stuff.
Well, I also want to make reference at this moment to a countryman of yours, Lachlan Page, who wrote a book called Magical Disinformation. It's out in Australia, it's out online and so on. And he talks about the politics. He lived here for many years and got married to a Colombian. He's now back in Australia. But he's taken what essentially are real political events that have taken place in the last few years and made them fiction. And you're just like, it is bizarre, isn't it? It's never boring, and it's a fun read. You can read it in
wow. I'll have to read that.
I had him on just before the end of last year, talking about it, and
cool.
It's fun. I would recommend it in that respect, because as you don't get so involved in the politics, you could read it, enjoy it, thinking
as a story,
unreal, but at the same time, almost every item of political item that he mentions is actually based on a
Is
real
actually real.
so,
Yeah, and look, I think that I'm almost more interested in Colombian politics than Australian politics.
oh yeah,
Because, you know, like when I was in Australia, and something about being in your own country, so it's, you're just eye rolling about everything. It's, it's that. Whereas in Colombia, if you're Colombian, I'm sure everyone's political here in one way. But just, you know, little things like you know, yeah, all the things that I've been learning about that people have been telling me about the president or been telling me about the previous presidents or previous candidates or whatever. It's like a movie, isn't it? It's like one long movie.
It's so unreal. I mean, some of the
Yeah.
things that happen. And the most recent was, of course, the Duque doing his economia naranja with orange juice and water, and you're just like,
I saw that.
he's the premier of this country, and he's giving a chat explaining. I mean, I'm expecting him to sing live on TV next. I mean, I'm expecting him to get up, which is what an Ecuadorian president many years ago did as well. He was being criticized for something. He started singing. Yeah,
yeah, right.
I don't know. I would not. I would. Yeah. You know, you'll be here long enough, and you'll have to get involved in politics. I sort of made a promise to myself for many years to not get involved, but then there came a time where I just couldn't. Yeah.
Plus, you're British. I think British people are instinctively drawn to politics. There's something.
We like being miserable.
Yeah, you're drawn to miserable subjects. Whereas Australians, it's like there is a degree of Australians that are, but Australians are more about, you know, having a good time and that kind of stuff.
I like bleak movies, you know, with bleak movies with austere soundtracks and grey skies.
Yeah, you're British. Tick. Tick.
Yeah.
So I've got obviously like a lot of my heritage is British, so there's an element of that in me, but I definitely feel atypically Australian in many ways. Like I don't drink, and I love dancing, and you know, Australian men in general are the most dance heavy kind of people. They're very stiff, kind of macho. And everyone drinks. So it's been cool to come here and almost be the truest version of myself that I've ever been in another country. And then to see that people are embracing that, it's an amazing feeling to have at the age of 39 when you're much more comfortable with yourself than you are when you're 20. So
with that in mind, I'm expecting you to draw next a parody or the real thing, observations of expat immigrants in Colombia.
Actually, what I'm going to do
with a cloud over my head.
Yeah, cloud over your head, exactly. I'm actually going to do an A to Z of Australian things because I think a lot of Colombians don't know a lot about Australia.
No.
And other than kangaroos and koalas and Vegemite. So I'm going to do an Australian A to Z, and hopefully that sheds some light on the little foods and bands and, you know, people, in excess, and, you know, like they didn't realize certain things were Australian. So
all right, well, excellent. Well, let me take this moment and say thank you. I mean, we're coming to an end here. People can check your stuff out on Instagram. It's what, Eddie White Jr.
JR, yep, Eddie White Jr.
Where else have we got stuff? Instagram stories, you're doing things?
Instagram stories, I'm doing a lot of I do a lot of interaction where I sort of ask a question and I say, look, what's the typical Colombian breakfasts? And they say everything they eat for breakfast, and then I'll go and draw the breakfast foods of Colombia tomorrow. So hopefully tomorrow when I launch the taste of the Colombian breakfast, which I think will be a popular one because Colombians love their breakfast. Yes. So that'll be fascinating. It was so different to Australian breakfast. I mean, I couldn't believe how different it was.
Well, have you tried the changua?
I do not dare because I'm lactose intolerant.
It might actually kill you.
Death by changua. Is it changua?
Puddle of milk.
Yeah, I haven't tried that, but I've tried. What else did I try? I tried masato, which I hated, which I really didn't have the taste for. But, you know, there's many things that taste good here, of course. But masato wasn't one for me.
Quickly back up on that one. Quickly.
Yeah. Choco Ramo, te amo.
Very good. Well, listen, Eddie, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully when things are a bit more normal, our paths will cross in person and I can
For
invite you
sure.
for coffee. We can
Yeah.
chat again, and I wish you all the best. Controversy or no controversy. It's been fun. This has been a good
Yeah, for
conversation,
sure.
and I think a book is going to be, is forthcoming. I think so.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know when, but there's a story. There's a story developing. That's for sure.
So
Yeah.
this is, I've been talking to Eddie White Jr., the artist from Australia, who's courted some controversy, but also gained a whole lot of followers and support for his art. Described as pop art by himself. He's done the A to Z to Colombia, and he's done sort of drawings of paisas, rolas, and so much else, and all the fruit and foods and regions and maps. I mean, he's covered just about everything. So you check out his stuff, Eddie White Jr., that's JR, on Instagram stories, etc. But he's going to be around for a while. He's got a business visa, so I don't think he's going anywhere just yet.
No.
Of course, this has been episode 363 of the Colombia Calling podcast. Feel free to back us on Patreon for as little as $2 a month to keep us going. And thank you for listening. This has been a really fun conversation. And so we're signing off for this week. Next week, we'll be taking on another topic Colombia related. And we've got a fair few people in the pipeline for the future. So thank you again. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Most welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.